The rain had been falling for hours when the old man collapsed beside the grocery store parking lot. Cars passed him. People stared for a second, then looked away. But one exhausted waitress, carrying her own pain silently, stopped walking. She had no idea that this small act of kindness would change her life forever, because somewhere, quietly, karma was watching everything. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you believe kindness always finds its way back. Welcome to Kindness Story Hub, where every story reminds us that even the smallest good deed can change someone's world. Emily Carter was 28 years old and completely worn out by life. She worked double shifts at a small diner in Chicago, barely earning enough to cover rent for her tiny apartment. Every morning felt the same. Wake up tired. Drink cheap coffee. Smile at rude customers. Pretend everything was okay. But it wasn't. 2 years earlier, Emily's mother had passed away after a long battle with cancer. The hospital bills had destroyed their savings. Soon after, Emily's fiancé left her, saying he couldn't handle all the sadness anymore. Since then, life had become cold and heavy. Still, there was one thing Emily never lost. Her kindness. Even when customers yelled at her for slow service, she stayed calm. When homeless people came into the diner asking for water, she gave them food when the manager wasn't looking. And every Friday night, she left leftover meals outside for anyone hungry enough to need them. Kindness costs nothing, her mother used to tell her. Emily held on to those words like they were the only light she had left. One freezing November evening, Emily finished a 12-hour shift. Her feet hurt. Her back ached. She had exactly $23 in her bank account. As she walked toward the bus stop, she noticed a crowd near the grocery store parking lot. People were whispering. Somebody laughed nervously. A man in a business suit glanced down, shook his head, and kept walking. Then Emily saw him. An elderly man lying on the wet pavement beside a shopping cart. His clothes were soaked from the rain. His hands trembled violently. He looked weak, fragile, invisible. Emily stopped immediately. "Sir," she asked softly, kneeling beside him. The old man opened his eyes slowly. "I'm okay," he whispered, even though he clearly wasn't. "You're freezing. I just need a minute." But Emily knew he needed more than that. She looked around at the people standing nearby. Nobody moved. One woman even muttered, "Probably drunk." Emily felt anger rise in her chest. Without thinking twice, she removed her own jacket and wrapped it around the man's shoulders. "Can you stand?" she asked. "Barely." She helped him up carefully and guided him toward the diner she had just left. The manager hated when homeless people entered the restaurant, but Emily didn't care anymore. She sat the old man in a booth near the heater and brought him hot soup and coffee. The old man stared at her quietly. "You didn't have to do this," he said. Emily smiled weakly. "Yeah. I kind of did." For the first time in weeks, she sat down and talked to someone without rushing. His name was Walter. He told her he'd recently lost his wife. After her death, his children stopped calling. His health declined. He lost motivation to take care of himself. That evening, while walking back from the pharmacy, he became dizzy and collapsed. As Walter spoke, Emily noticed something strange. His voice sounded educated. Calm. Gentle. Not like someone life had completely defeated. Still, she never asked questions. She simply listened. When the diner closed, Emily used the last $20 she had to pay for a cheap motel room nearby so Walter wouldn't sleep outside in the cold. "You really shouldn't spend your money on me," Walter said quietly. Emily shrugged. "Maybe someday somebody will help me too." Walter looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not a weak smile. A knowing one. The next morning, Emily returned to her normal life. Nothing magical happened. Bills still arrived. Customers still complained. The world still felt unfair. Days passed. Then one afternoon, the diner manager called Emily into his office. "I'm letting you go," he said coldly. Emily blinked in shock. "What? You've been giving away food again. I warned you." She tried to explain, but it didn't matter. Just like that, she lost her job. Emily walked home carrying a small cardboard box with her belongings inside. Rain soaked through her sweater. Her chest felt tight. She sat alone in her apartment that night staring at unpaid bills spread across the kitchen table. For the first time in years, she cried. Not quiet tears. The kind that come from complete exhaustion. I'm trying so hard, she whispered into the empty room. But life stayed silent. 3 days later, there was a knock at her door. Emily opened it carefully. A man in a dark coat stood there holding an envelope. Emily Carter. Yes. You've been requested at the office of Hawthorne Enterprises tomorrow morning at 10. Emily frowned. There must be some mistake. The man handed her the envelope politely and left. Inside was a formal invitation with an address downtown. Emily almost ignored it. But curiosity won. The next morning, she borrowed a clean blouse from her neighbor and took the train downtown. When she arrived, her jaw nearly dropped. The building was enormous. Glass walls. Marble floors. Security guards. This wasn't some ordinary office. A receptionist greeted her warmly and escorted her upstairs. Then the doors opened. And Emily froze. Sitting inside the office was Walter. But he looked completely different. Tailored suit. Clean haircut. Expensive watch. The weak old man from the parking lot was gone. Emily stared in disbelief. Walter smiled gently. Please sit down. What is this? Walter folded his hands carefully. My full name is Walter Hawthorne. I'm the founder of Hawthorne Enterprises. Emily's eyes widened. The company was famous across the country. But, why were you in the parking lot? Walter finished softly. He sighed. After my wife died, I stopped caring about anything. Even my own life. I spent weeks walking through the city alone. And do you know what I noticed? Emily stayed silent. Nobody sees suffering anymore. People look away because it's easier. Walter leaned forward. But you didn't. Emily felt speechless. You helped me when you had almost nothing yourself, he continued. You gave me your jacket. Your time. Your last $20. Emily looked down nervously. Anyone would have done that. Walter smiled sadly. No, Emily. They wouldn't. The room became quiet. Then Walter slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a job offer. Community Outreach Director. Full salary. Benefits. Housing assistance. Emily stared at the paper with trembling hands. I don't understand, she whispered. Walter's eyes softened. My company donates millions every year, but I realized something important after meeting you. He paused. Kindness should be led by people who truly understand pain. Emily couldn't speak. Tears filled her eyes again. Only this time, they weren't from hopelessness. Walter continued softly. Karma has a strange way of watching people quietly. Not every good deed gets rewarded immediately. But goodness leaves footprints in this world. Eventually, they lead somewhere. A few months later, Emily's life looked completely different. She moved into a small but beautiful apartment. She helped organize food drives, shelters, and support programs across Chicago. She spent her days helping struggling families, elderly people, and homeless veterans. But the most important thing never changed. Her kindness. One snowy evening, while leaving a shelter downtown, Emily noticed a young boy sitting outside alone. Cold. Hungry. Afraid. People walked past him quickly. Emily stopped immediately. She smiled gently and held out her hand. Hey, she said softly. You okay? And in that moment, she realized something powerful. Kindness moves forward. One person helps another. Then that person helps someone else. Like ripples in water, goodness keeps traveling farther than we can see. Years later, Walter passed away peacefully in his sleep. But before he died, he left Emily a handwritten letter. It read, The world changes because of people like you. Never believe your kindness is small. The quiet things we do for others are often the loudest things karma hears. Emily framed that letter beside her desk. Every difficult day, she read it again. And every single time, it reminded her that kindness is never wasted. Sometimes life feels unfair. Sometimes good people suffer while cruel people succeed. But kindness has a strange power. It survives. It returns. And even when nobody notices your good heart, karma does. So if you're struggling today, don't let the world harden you. Hold the door open. Help someone carry their burden. Speak gently. Care deeply. Because somewhere, quietly, life is watching the choices you make. And one day, when you least expect it, the kindness you gave away may come back and change your life forever. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. And remember, even the smallest act of kindness can create a miracle in someone else's life.